So there's a big update tonight dropping for Throne and Liberty. It brings that new Abyssal Dungeon event, where you'll be able to get your hands on a ton of this new Tier 3 gear. The economy will be changing, with Hyperboost Auction House merge, and matchmaking may get a bit more active too. There's this new DPS meter. You'll be able to see a full breakdown of your abilities and how much damage they actually contribute. And we at long last get actual Rune Presets. There are a load of additions to housing, including storage, some new exclusive furniture, and the ability to dye that furniture. There are a few artifact updates, but unfortunately not as good as expected. And then there's a ton of general fixes here, with some cool quality of life adjustments, Nebula merchant updates, and some fixes. So let's go through everything you need to know with this update. First, starting with the new event. So you will find the exact schedule for that here. It occurs every day twice. You have a war and you have this peace. It's going to rotate between different Tier 1 Abyss dungeons. What happens for peace is all of these mobs turn into these starlit mobs. And when you kill them, they will drop a currency. They say it's a buff here, but you need to get 50 of this buff, which means killing 50 of these mobs. And yes, they are Tier 3 mobs essentially, with nearly 500,000 hit points. You can see in the top right there the description of the peace event, and it says with 50 starlight fragments you can acquire a starlight key to open a starlit chest that appears every 5 minutes. In the pouch notes it says you can only open one chest each event. So that's all you're going to do for peace. You're going to go to the event, you're going to kill 50 mobs and open your chest, and that's it. I assume those chests are not exactly going to be contested between players because it's not a PvP area, and then you'll be able to get your hands on some of these gear drops. But yeah, it means this event is heavily time gated. You'll want to go there every day and at least open that chest. You can then go to the PvP area, which should have like a mini boss spawning 3 times throughout the event. You will get contribution beating up this mini boss, and then have a chance to drop some Tier 3 gear, I assume. Similar to open world war mode arch bosses. So this will be the main way you're getting this Tier 3 gear. However, they're also adding some drops to arch bosses and Nebula Island. We can go visit the Nebula merchant, and we can indeed see they've updated these Nebula chests, with the new addition spending 30 of these greater Nebula stones to get once a week this pack, which has a lot of those Tier 3 accessories, but still includes the older Tier 2 versions. This chest that you would buy 7 times per week does not look like it has been updated to include any of the new drops, and this Nebula accessory chance chest here still remains the same. So it's just that new addition. They do also say here that they replaced the Noble Equipment Chance chest with one now that should drop some of this new Tier 3 gear. And we can indeed see it's bringing some of those new accessories, like these earrings, this bracelet. But this other chest here appears to remain the same. Really, the main way will be every day trying to partake in this new event in order to get this new gear. You can jump to peace, grab your chest, and then feel free to go to a war and get contribution on those bosses that spawn supposedly 3 times. Although on the Korean server, in the tooltip, it says they only spawn twice. So we'll need to confirm the full details on global. But moving on with the patch notes, just some more details on the Hyperboost server integration. I do recommend if you are on a Hyperboost server to remove your auction house listings. They say it will forcefully expire those items and return them to you, but you never know, something could go wrong. Same with the Lucent. They say they will give it to you if you didn't claim it. Just better to be safe than sorry. But yeah, Hyperboost servers will basically become normal servers. The auction house will be merged with the entire region, and same with matchmaking. So again, it'll be no different to just being another server. Looking at the combat DPS meter, again, to set it up for yourself, you're going to have to go to the ring menu here. You're going to go to settings, to quick menu, and at the bottom you have the 3 options here. And you need to add these options to the ring menu wherever you want. Then you can open that menu. You can turn off or turn on that combat DPS meter. You can access the full breakdown, and you also have the ability to stop and start recording the detailed logs, which get saved in your user app data local TL saved combat logs, as just mentioned here. I currently don't have something that you could parse those with. I believe there are people still working on it, but it would help a bunch to be able to actually save this data, because if I go into another boss, another dummy test, all this data gets replaced with the new combat time. As stated here, it will track while you're against boss type enemies within solo dungeons, trials, co-op dungeons, and raids, as well as practice dummies and safe zones, which unfortunately makes it seem like we won't have it active for the PvE bosses. It would be nice if we could have that, because then everybody could easily see that Curse Explosion is not dealing the appropriate damage versus your other abilities in these field bosses versus raid bosses, trial bosses, and so on. Every other content's fine, just not against these ascended field bosses. But I should be able to do so if somebody makes a proper parser, because then I will be able to compare the DPS damage breakdown of a normal test against either a dummy or a raid boss versus those field bosses. Because very nicely, if you use the stat detailed combat log recording, this will record your DPS no matter where you are. In PvP, against mobs in the open world, against those field bosses. So you can have this data, but in a saved log format, and that means you can't see it like this, since it will by default look just like this. And you need some tool to sort all these data entries and then calculate the ratio, hit count, and so on, just like this. But then Rune Presets. So this is going to come at quite a big solid cost. You're going to have to unlock every single slot here all over again. I recommend screenshotting what you were using in case you won't remember. But each slot is going to cost over 300,000 to unlock. So $1 million per gear piece, which means 8 million just for one gear preset. And you're going to have multiple different gear presets here, maybe even 6, 7, or 10. As some compensation, they are sending us all 10 million solid, as you see here, and as the devs confirm here. In terms of the new housing additions, again, really good to have extra storage there for you guys. You'll be able to unlock it at 50 by default and expanding another 140 slots with Solent and then 340 slots with Lucent. To unlock this, you need 7,800 housing power. Placed furniture can also be dyed. From the Korean patch notes, you can see multiple different examples of this, and that dyeing will be preserved even if you put that item in storage or move it to a different house. And they're adding the cool Queen Belandir themed furniture. You can see what that setup looks like here. The lamp, the chair, the coffee table, and the bed. And there's also the wallpaper and flooring that you'll be able to purchase from the shop just here. And they have increased our inventory space just a little bit for our miscellaneous bag. The base is 120. In terms of artifacts, I'm a bit disappointed. This is not their promise to rework yet, just some small quality of life improvements. They're not increasing the inventory space as I had hoped. It will still remain 300. They're just making it so that your material conversion inputs will be 1,000 instead of 300. Really, all they need to do to make sorting artifacts a whole lot easier is increase the base storage for those artifacts. Just make this 1,000, 3,000, 10,000, and that would make it a ton easier. You just open all the chests you have, and then you only have to go through sorting them once based on all these filters, which they now have the star filter too. So if you are really opening 10,000 artifacts, it'd be very likely you'd find a lot of those, and then you could just sort through those rather than all the other drops. And that would be very simple fix they could do right now to massively improve artifact sorting. And they can worry about their entire rework a bit later. As Tico said, he would very much like to just delete the entire system. But this is all we're getting right now. Some filter options, a shortcut to the material transmutation menu. You will get a lot more artifacts via material transmutation, and that's about it. Still no ability to add tier 3 gear to the equipment material transmutation. Crossbow getting a fix here to quickfire. It was dealing higher damage than it should have. Don't worry, this won't really affect PvE much. Quickfire already barely contributes to any PvE damage. It's just very powerful in PvP, and so this fix. But they are boosting its weakened damage a little bit, the intended amount, from 20% to 30%, with a fix to this Lucian's crossbow, as you can see here. A wand fix for Abyssal Burst, like they did with Vampiric Contract, so it'll work when attacking at higher elevations. But then the general fixes, we can see our arena season will also be ending. 3v3 will be returning instead of 6v6, probably because arenas are currently pretty much dead due to Battlegrounds taking over the show. This week's Dimensional Trial looks like Void Wastes again, but they should be adding new ones to the rotation. They've removed the role requirement when matching for random elite and random normal, but it's still here for random epic. They've finally increased the amount of runes you get from the shop here with the ornate coins from 1 to 10. With your morphs, you now have the ability to basically select 5 favorite ones by adding up to 10 designated morphs. And when you go to morph, it will be random which morph you actually turn into. So just a neat new feature which you can use then for all the different morphs if you wish. There are some Battleground fixes here and the update in the combat coin merchant, as we said, with the noble equipment chest, which will now drop some of this new tier 3 gear, with the addition of that greater Nebula accessory chance chest from the Nebula merchant for 30 of those greater stones. In the guild menu, you'll now properly be able to see the probability of these drops from the reward chest here, which is great, and a morph fix where you were prevented from moving occasionally when landing from a glide morph. And that's about it. Again, a lot of new tier 3 gear coming. 9 different weapons, as you can see via these screenshots. 4 new armor sets. So this, and this. I will do some closer analysis on whether any of this is actually useful as a damage dealer, depending on what other gear sets you're already using. And then we have 2 new cloaks, and this one will very likely be best in slot versus your Hellfire Cloak or your Cloak of Piercing Ice, but I need to do a closer breakdown on that, as it may depend how much skill damage boost you already have. There are then 4 new necklaces, 4 new bracelets, 8 new rings, 4 new belts, and 4 new earrings. Again, some of which I will be upgrading to. At least I plan to do so if I can get the thing to drop for me. As again, we only have the event twice per day, and you can only open the chest once in peace and then be able to get contribution against the bosses in PvP to probably only have a chance to get the drops. But we will check out those events in more detail tomorrow when the servers go live again. Maintenance will be pretty long this time, about 8.5 hours, starting at the usual times. So with that said, hopefully this was somewhat insightful. Thanks all for watching, and another special thank you to all my channel members for your extra support. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.